So I made this render here of this Nintendo cereal system. Basically, it was a project that we had going in our community. We had to do a product render, and this was the original reference shots from the actual original commercial. Was the viewport. You can clearly see it's very simple, not a lot of complex stuff going on. So what I'm going to do here quickly, I'm going to break down this whole render for you guys and show you guys basically how I put it together so you can achieve something like this and get this really photogenic, I mean, that almost pretty much looks like a photo, because most of the stuff really was a photo except for the cereal, but we'll get into all of that right now. This file is available for all the people in my community. They can download this, get inside of the file, and see how I put things together. If you guys are new to my channel, my name is Patrick LeVar. I do renders inside of Blender Octane. I love Octane coming from Cinema 4D. And I also love Blender. Put them together, you got Blender Octane. Blender Octane is free if you did not know that. I will send you to another video later at the end of this video on how to get started for free downloading Octane Blender and getting things set up. But first thing first, when I started this whole project, most of the time I'll just get in and start rendering something. But this time I actually sat down and was like, you know what, let's grab some references. And I wasn't sure exactly. I knew I wanted to do something from the 80s from my childhood. So you can clearly see here, I got the old Mac, which was the second computer I ever used, cassette tape, which was something that I used constantly in the 80s, and then even my favorite here, we had some Garbage Pail Kids, and I think I'm going to revisit this idea later on again. But here again, I was just scrolling through Pinterest, and I came across some cereals. And as I kept scrolling through all of these old cereals, I had came across the Nintendo cereal system. And I got lucky on Pinterest. I literally found this thing is like these layouts of cereal boxes, and these are absolutely perfect for building our scene, because I'm going to use this as my texture, and they're already flat and they're already proportioned. It's like perfect. It was a perfect setup. So I grabbed a bunch of cereals that I ate as a kid and things that I loved just to revisit it. And then again, just searching on the internet, I found a nice little clean image here. But I went for this one here because it's old. It's got some damage. Like, you could not try, it would take forever to try to model and texturize this old cracky look, right? So I ended up using that to my advantage. And even on the back of the box, which you don't see in the render, this is there. So I can rotate the box if I want it and do an animation, and all of this goodness is there, right? So that's what I did. And then, a matter of fact, the commercial was a big thing for me. Here is the YouTube link. I'm using PureRev, which is a free program you can use for references. So I will come back to that video to get the feel, get the mood of how I want it to do. And then even like the little cereal pieces, I had to come back, and even that gave me ideas on how to make the cereal pieces. So let's jump into the blend file. Now inside here, again, in the blend file, you can clearly see that it's not a lot going on here. I have this backdrop here, which is like a, endless background. I got that going on here. And then pretty much here is the scene. This plane here is where I have the Mario character on. It's just an image as plain. Put that on there. Even the cereal box. Now I did go through a pretty extensive tutorial on modeling this box, because I had hoped to do some animation with it, and I ended up not, because it was just, I have a NVIDIA 1050 Ti laptop, like 4 gigs of RAM, or maybe 4 gigs of RAM of memory. It's just not, it wasn't going to happen, right? Put it that way. But that wasn't going to stop me from doing the render. And then these other objects here, like this picture I've got here from Blender Kit, and Blender Kit does work with Blender Octane. You just need to convert your materials over, and I have lots of videos on how to convert materials over. So it's not a big thing. If it's a massive node setup, you might need to do a little bit of rebuilding. But if there's some basic image maps in there, connecting it to the roughness, the albedo, and the normals, and then convert it, I can literally press one button. If I come down here, I don't have any materials to show you here, but literally when I have a material that's from Cycles, there will be another tab down here on the side that says convert to material, Octane material, and I can convert it. So it's not a big thing for me. A lot of these, like this was from Blender Kit. This was also from Blender Kit. That was it from pretty much from Blender Kit. So these two things with the materials were all from Blender Kit. And then if we come into the bowl, I've actually made these bowls here. The bowls were super easy using what was it called here? A screw modifier. Literally just taking simple geometry, make a screw modifier on it, boom, it makes it. It's like really, really easy. And I did the same thing with the plate here. Again, the same process of making a bowl. And as a matter of fact, I think I learned how to do that from 3D Poly. It's a super really easy process. And then same thing here, I modeled out these spoons by myself. It was very easy, just looking on YouTube how to make a spoon. Literally, I tried to find the shortest video on how to make a spoon, get my base spoon up, and then build on it on top of that. The first initial day, the one thing that took the longest was this box, like I said, because I was originally going to animate it, so I wanted all the flaps to be able to have their own hinge point, so they can move and flux and do whatever they needed to do. And I ended up not doing that. And then the bag itself here was, again, just another quick little lesson how to make a shrink wrap bag, or how to make a, using pressure, basically how to make a bag of chips. I think I searched on, and I got this quick tutorial, literally 2-minute tutorial on how to make a bag of chips. And that was pretty much how I got the base geometry, using some cloth simulation and pressure, and then just applying all of that, so I have just the object here without the all the animation stuff going on, so it wouldn't bog down my scene. The thing that took me the longest was lighting and materials. I literally spent 3 days on this whole project. It took the first day literally just to model the stuff. And then the next 2 days, I was just constantly tweaking lighting and tweaking materials and things like that. And a thing that you got to remember when you're doing these type of projects, I would say 80-20. You know, if you can get away with doing 20% of the work, do it. Like a lot of things, like I wasn't trying to spend a lot of time on, because I didn't want it. Like, for example, even here, you can see the bag is kind of poking out the side here a little bit. But again, if that's not going to be seen to camera, who cares? Don't kill yourself. You know, use that 20% just to get it, get it there. You get it there 80% there, and don't even have to worry about whatever. I don't know what I'm jibber jabbing about. But that was basically it. So I want to jump into the materials, because the materials, what, like I said, was the hardest part and the hardest challenge. And let's start off with the cereal box. And here is the cereal box material. Literally, this is the complete node setup. And if you look at it, it's one node. It was literally that material that I found on Pinterest, the exact same thing. And I just popped it in here, threw it in here, add a little bit of roughness to it, and that's it. I didn't even do any bump or normal. I could have done that, but it wasn't really showing up on the camera anyway. So what's the point? Why save, the headache and save myself some memory? Now on that's one of the things I will say, an advantage of working on such a small GPU. I really have to manage my scene and maximize my memory usage, right? And Octane has a lot of things in it that can help me to do that. So again, if I rotate it here on the side, you can see, look at all that. We got everything that's on this box. It's really, really cool. So I still have the cereal box, which I can actually do some animation to if I wanted to go back and look at that. Now, it is a little bit dark in this scene because of the lights I'm isolating it here. So if I wanted to beef that up, I just come into my camera imager inside of Octane here, and I can just literally crank this up a little bit. But I'm not going to go ahead and make a bunch of changes here because it's going to affect the whole render output. So I just want to leave that there. So that was a cereal box material. Not a lot of thing going on. Literally one material, and that's it. Most of the magic happens in the UV editor. This is where we get into the UV editor, where I can shift around stuff here. Like I can come in here and select certain tabs. Like certain tabs I ended up switching because like this white area here was on this tab and it was really distracting. So I literally just took that box and literally just shifted it over here onto this onto the Zelda Link character. And that was pretty much it. So if I turn the render on here, you can see my cereal box here. And again, like I said, this area up here, I kind of just tweaked it because again, just trying to make things look pleasing in the viewport here. But the UV is where you basically do all your magic, shifting those UV around to fit in perfect, in the position that you want them to be. And that's what really makes this really cool workflow, basically using photos and images, because I got all this free grunge data for free. Like I don't really have to do anything to really make that box look good. Next one thing I want to get into is this bag of cereal, like how I put the material on, because this one would kind of stress me out. I didn't want to try to do like a particle system and have like particles in the bag. Like that was just going to be, again, way too much on my system, and I wasn't going to be able to achieve that. So what I ended up doing was making the bag material, like I said in the beginning, just make the bag material. Once I had that, I was going to throw a texture. At first, I was going to throw a texture maybe inside of it with a clear plastic. But again, having a clear plastic material and then having something inside of it, and then it was just, again, way too much on the render time. So what I ended up doing was I did a cheat basically. I took the clear material. You can literally see here, this is all I have. This is the material setup. I have my universal material, color correction. I have a chaos node, which is a node here in Octane that we have, which takes a material or takes a texture and it literally, like it says, chaos. It spreads it around so we don't see it repeat a lot. And it's basically like a scatter. It's like scattering the material around. And then I have my serial material right here and a scale node. And then I have all of that being mixed with a clear, transparent shader or my bag. I have a bag material here, which is a clear plastic material, basically. That's all it is. And I have that mixed. So that allows me to control how much of the plastic material I want to see versus how much of the serial material I want to see. Again, using the UV editor, I'm able to put where I want the serial. And then what I did and was right here, I literally just came, since I have two materials on this one thing, I literally would just select these vertices and come in here and literally just like paint it out. Right here, you can literally see, I just selected these vertices and said, okay, I want this to be the clear plastic material. And everything else in the bottom is going to be the bag material with the cereal inside of it. So that allowed me to get this little free area up here on top where the seal would be, because the cereal wouldn't be all piled up on there. And that's basically how I did the cereal. It's really easy. It was a real good comp. I mean, you can see this looks horrible, right? But all that's not going to be seen. The only part that really is going to be seen is just this little top edge. And even the cereal material here is just literally, I went to Photoshop, made a copy of it, and literally just spread it around. So I'll show you the image. This was the cereal material. Literally just went into Photoshop, copied, and just did a little bit of painting with the heel brush and clone painted all around here, just spreading the cereal around. Because originally, let me see if I can find the original image. This was the original image. Again, scouring the internet, looking for reference images. And I found this, and I knew, oh, this is perfect. Here's a close-up of the actual cereal, but minus this box material. So what I did was just clone this out here, clone stamp this big part out here, and I had this portion of the cereal and I had this portion of the cereal, and this allowed me to come up with those maps, with this cereal map. And again, it didn't need to be super precise. You can see it's really ugly and horrible. I probably could have spent a little bit more time on this, but again, I knew it wasn't going to be seen. The cereal wasn't the highlight of the show. It wasn't the star of the show. It was just a secondary actor. So I didn't have to, again, 80-20. I didn't want to spend 100% time on this. Literally just quick and easy, right? And this is what I use to get their actual size. So I literally brought this as an image in plane, imported it, and literally just took a vertice and built all the way around here to get the actual individual cereal pieces, because I did use these cereal pieces to actually make cereal in the bowl, which we'll look at next. All right, so if we get close up on the cereal, you can clearly see the cereal does not look that great. Again, because I knew the way the shot was set up, I didn't have to work that hard on making the cereal really good. If I was going to do a close up on the cereal, then I probably have to spend another couple more days just on the cereal. But literally, it's just a plane with these particles spawned onto the plane. The plane, I made it white just to make sure it looks like it's some milk. And you can clearly see there's not a lot of detail going on that. If I jump out of the scene here you are. You can see the cereal pieces that I made. Very crude, nothing special. Again, I knew it wasn't going to be a close-up on this, so I didn't have to worry about spending a lot of time on these guys here. I added a material on it, very basic material. I think I ended up adding in a little bit of roughness in displacement, or not even displacement, in the bump. Very basic material on the cereal here. Again, I didn't want to spend a lot of that time. I think it actually looks okay, pretty decent. And I think I actually put too much work into it as far as the way the shot was, because the shot was so far away you couldn't even see that. So I probably could save myself some more time on that. I knew what type of shot I want, so I didn't have to work. And this all comes back to me in the beginning, setting up my reference shot that let me know what angle I was going to be, how much work I was going to need to put in on that shot. If I didn't know what the shot was going to be, I probably could have spent a whole day just modeling pieces of cereal, trying to get that to look real with a fluid sim for milk and all that. But again, setting up that reference shot in the beginning really helped me to establish what I really needed to spend my time on. So if we jump back out and look at it, here is the cereal. Now you can see the cereal does look a little bit suspect right here, a little bit shady, but that's not the main focal. The main focal is pretty much the cereal box. We got Mario pointing to it. So your eyes will tend to drift right here in the center of this area, and then you can glance around from there, and you can, the cereal, like I said, I probably could have spent a little bit more time on that, but no big deal. And then here is the cereal. Now, a little bit of that milk there, again, it looks okay. It looks passable, right? The bowls, very simple. I didn't go a lot. The toast was a 3D scan, again, from the Blender kit. Super easy, nothing complex here. And again, I just converted the materials over. Here's the material setup for that. Universal material, color correction node. That's just a color, change the color a little bit. Here is the material. And then I pumped this into, I actually made another copy of another material, and it's just the bump node. And this is pretty much right here. And as a matter of fact, I don't even think this is connected. Now, I'm not even using this one here. This one is out of here. So let me just move that. So literally, this is the material. It's just a diffuse material. I changed it from the universal material to a diffuse material, which worked out better because the specular wasn't right for me. It didn't look right. And then I got that image plugged into here, and that's pretty much it. With the color ramp down here on the bottom to control, again, just making some tweaks on the bumpness of it. And that was pretty much all the setup was for the actual toast. If we get a closer render look on this. Now, this was a 3D scan. So I would, like, whenever I had the opportunity to use a 3D scan, I would, because again, it just helps with the realism. Like, if you get up close to this, yeah, it looks a little suspect. But again, the shot angle, I knew I can get away with it. And it is, you know, it is. There it is. It's a piece of toast. Nothing crazy, right? And then next was the butter here. The butter on top is literally just a cube. If I go ahead and isolate this, it's just a cube with some bevel modifiers on it to smooth it out. And literally got the hex code for butter, creamy butter, I guess. And that was it. I didn't go too crazy on it. I didn't add any specular. I could have did that and add a bunch of specular and roughness. And, you know, I brought the roughness kind of make it a little bit shiny. Again, I was looking at a piece of butter when I actually did this, just to try to get it. This real world references help the most. And I think a lot of people don't do that. Like, if there's one tip that you can grab from this video, when you're making something, when you're modeling something, when you're working on a texture, get some references and just work. I mean, literally eye glance back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and just get it as close as possible. It really helps a lot. And I did that a lot on this setup, which most renders, I normally don't do that. And I've already noticed a lot of people, my friends, were like, wow, that looks really good, but that looks like one of your best renders. And the reason why, I was looking at reference the whole time I was making this. Anytime I was the toast, I had reference of toast. The butter, I had reference of butter. Anytime I was doing anything, I had that reference, and that just really helped. So again, I could have went hardcore on this and added a bunch of specular and stuff like that, but it was going to crank up my render times on my little limited laptop. So again, minimizing 80-20 rule. Same thing with the spoon. The spoon was nothing crazy. I have two materials. I have one material which is a metal material with a little bit of roughness on it, nothing crazy there. Add a little bit of roughness just to break things up. And then on the handle material, I was going to go all out and add like a wood texture material on it. And I looked at the reference, again, the 80s reference, you know, wood texture spoons weren't like really a thing. I mean, they were, but this just felt more retro. This felt more like a spoon from the 80s, just with a little bland brown handle on it, right? And that was pretty much it. A little bit of albedo material with a little bit of grunge on the roughness, and that was it pretty much for the spoon. Didn't get too crazy with that. Here was the jug that I downloaded from Blender Kit. Again, already, you know, trying to use many assets as possible to save me on render time, 80-20. And that really helped, not render time, but modeling time, because I didn't want to model this. I could have, but why do it if I don't have to? This wasn't the main focus of the project. It was the serial advertisement, basically, was the whole thing. Here it is material, very simple, specular material with a little bit of roughness in it. That was it. I had a little bit of a roughness grunge map that you can barely even see it. Because again, if it was a real commercial, there wouldn't be a bunch of fingerprints all over it. They would wipe it. They would try to keep it clean. But I added just ever so slightly, a little bit something that you really can't even pick up, but it's not perfectly exactly clean. Also, there was a piece of another material that went inside of here for the milk. And again, here is the milk. We got some specular on that. This technically wasn't even milk. It was really orange juice. I just changed it to white to make it to milk. And again, I could have went crazy, did some, you know, subsurf on it to try to make it look real, like real milk. But that wasn't necessary. It wasn't, why do the extra work and crank up the render times? You can hear me keep repeating this process again, 80-20. I don't want to have to do all that work for something that really wasn't going to be that noticeable. So this was the milk, or AKA orange juice, that I threw inside here. Just a specular material set to white, roughness all the way down. That was it. Again, this was a kit. It came with the jug here and the orange juice. This is what it originally looked like. So again, same material there. I just changed it to orange juice. Why not mix it up a little bit? And that was pretty much the glass. I think the glass, yeah, I did add a little bit of roughness on it to the glass there. And that was pretty much it for the orange juice and the milk jug. So if we back out here, you can look at the milk. There is the orange juice. I mean, they look pretty good. Here, I could have still cranked up a little bit more samples here for the actual glass on this, but again, once it was finished, I think I had about 1,000. I'm not sure exactly how many samples. Let's quickly take a look how many samples that I ended up using in the final render. 500. You know what? I don't think. Yeah, I think that's what I ended up using, 500. So I could have easily cranked that up to 2,000. But again, I was on my 3rd day on this project. I was getting a little bit burnt out on it. Next would be the lighting. Now, the lighting for me, again, on Mario quickly here, Mario, you can see he's casting a little bit of a light here also, because in the original, it was a cartoon character, and I was going to originally try to do a toon shader, and I was like, I'm not going to set all that up. And who knows? I didn't even get into that. So I literally just made this an emission plane, cranked up the brightness, and added a little bit of contrast on it to give it that cartoony look. But I wanted it to be in the scene so we can have that little bit of a drop shadow that he's casting onto the box there that just really kind of sets that up a little bit. And you can see a little bit of a shadow there. But that worked out pretty cool. So he's actually casting some light onto the scene also. Now let's get into the lighting. One thing I wanted to make sure though, because I was going for an 80s vibe, I literally Googled what was the lighting color of bulbs in the 80s for standard use. 5600 or 6500 and all that daylight color wasn't really a thing back then. It was pretty much, most of them said it was anywhere from 4,000, from candlelight to 4,600 Kelvin color, basically. So that's why everything has this a little bit of orange tint, because those were the bulb colors back in the 80s, right? So I tried to mimic that also. So my lighting setup here, literally got one light here, which is my master light. It's a big light. Again, this whole thing is built to scale, is built to real world scale. Here is my main character, Dennis. So I used to always make sure things are built to scale. And you can literally see things are built to scale. Maybe just a tad bit under scale. Like the bowl of cereal could be a little bit bigger. I think everything could be just a scotch bigger, but hey, it was in the ballpark. That was the major thing. I didn't want to have this 1 meter size bowl of cereal that just, the lights don't work properly. Especially in Octane, you really need to work at real world scale to maximize the way lights work and the percentages and the wattages that I was able to use. So here is this, like, you figure maybe a 3-foot box, soft box. I have it here, casting that little bit of warm light on here. And again, the light color on this one was, what am I doing? The light is right here. Just go ahead and select that. 4,500 on the warmth of the light, and again 75 watts, right? And then my top light was a 50 watt, and then this one was at 4,000. Okay, so just a slightly little bit different color there, just to mix it up. And that was pretty much it for the lighting. 2 lights, guys. And then I did use an HDRI, but the HDR is super low. It's like at 0.3, right? It's at 0.3, and that HDRI just really added a little bit of, let me see if we can go ahead and fire that HDR up so we can see what that looks like. Brown Studio or something. Yeah, Brown Photo Studio 2K. And this was the HDR, and literally this was the level that it was at. It's just light. Literally it was just to to fill in those shadows that were a little bit too dark. That's all it was to do. That was it for the lighting. Very simple, because again, I was trying to think, how would they really light this in the studio? In the 80s, again, like, we don't have all the crazy hectagon softbox that we have today. Like, just keeping it very minimal to set this thing off and give it that really old school retro look. Post-processing was all done in DaVinci Resolve, and here is the EXR, and all I normally do is bring in a adjustment clip, put it on top, and then I will jump into the color grading section of DaVinci Resolve because it is the best. And I literally would just come in here. I have this plugin called Dehancer. Here's my Dehancer plugin, and this thing is absolutely fantastic. This really took it into the 80s realm, literally using a Fuji Chrome Vela 50 film stock on that. That allows me to add in some halation, some bloom, and it just takes it back to that old look. So I've used 35 millimeter, one ISO 500 film grain, halation on a 35 millimeter. So that really helped me to get things close to that real world again. And I literally will just go through here and just try different looks and different. This one's a little bit more softer. It's a little bit more bluer. And I think this one was that was pretty much the same film grade, different, but yeah, pretty much just a little bit darker, a little bit more blue in there. And that this was the original, and this is another one that I ended up not using. I think I ended up using this one, which was a little bit more brighter and hotter. And I'm not sure if that was the one I actually used. I think I ended up using the one that's in the timeline. This is, yeah, I did use that hot bright one. So this was the one that I ended up using here. And again, it just really dehancer 80/20. It took all the work. It did 80% of the work. I didn't have to, all I did was 20%. It did all of it. So that really helped take it and put it in that 80s world.